He left his house for work, suited, shaved, calm as always. He kissed his wife goodbye. She watched him walk out the front door of their suburban home, and he never came back. No body, no note, no phone call, no trace. For decades he was presumed dead. Some believed he had been murdered, maybe even by the mob. Others whispered he ran from gambling debts or something darker. But as the years dragged on, theories faded, and the man who had once been a respected Chicago stockbroker became just another cold case buried under time. Until one day, 32 years later, he was found alive, not hiding in a cabin in the woods, not wandering the streets with no memory, but working under a new name in the glowing lights of a Las Vegas casino. This is the astonishing, almost surreal true story of Arthur Gerald Jones, and it begins, like many great American disappearances, not with chaos or bloodshed, but with routine. A quiet routine that shattered in an instant. Let's rewind to the 1970s. Arthur was a commodities broker in Chicago, married, father, smart, disciplined, and from the outside, living the picture-perfect life. But behind the suits and stocks, there were cracks forming, serious ones. He was under pressure, heavy financial losses, and reportedly, a dangerous gambling habit that may have tied him to people you don't want to owe anything. It was July 1979 when it all came to a head. That morning, Arthur dressed like he always did. He grabbed his briefcase, kissed his wife, and told her he'd be heading to work. It was just another Monday, but Arthur never made it to the office. He vanished, completely. No surveillance, no receipts, no goodbyes. His car was found abandoned near O'Hare Airport. His credit cards were untouched, and perhaps most chilling, there were no signs of violence, no forced entry, no ransom calls, no body, just gone. Investigators were stunned. So was his wife, Joanne, who frantically called the police when he didn't return. Friends and colleagues were questioned. The FBI got involved. The airport was scoured. Nothing. Days became weeks. Weeks became years. Eventually, Arthur Jones was declared legally dead. But the truth, Arthur Jones was very much alive, living a double life under the name Joseph Richard Sandelli, and he wasn't just hiding. He was working, surrounded by hundreds of people daily, right out in the open. So how did this man pull off the unthinkable, vanish in plain sight, and stay hidden for over 3 decades? What was he running from? What secrets did he carry? And how, in the end, was he finally found? Stay with me. This story only gets wilder. Las Vegas, a city of bright lights and darker secrets, where reinvention isn't a dream, it's a business. And in the heart of the city, working quietly inside the sportsbook of the Rampart Casino, was a man who called himself Joseph Richard Sandelli. He was polite, unassuming, a behind-the-counter kind of guy. Not flashy, not loud, not someone you'd remember after a casual interaction. Just another middle-aged employee handling betting slips and answering calls about odds. But Joseph wasn't Joseph. He was Arthur Gerald Jones, presumed dead since 1979, now resurrected under layers of lies. So how did he do it? Let's go back to the moment he vanished. Back in 1979, investigators couldn't find evidence of foul play. No one ever collected on his life insurance. He didn't touch his savings. It was as if the earth swallowed him whole. But Arthur wasn't in the ground. He was slipping into a new life. Reports suggest he used fake documents to assume the identity of a real man. Joseph Richard Sandelli, a man from the East Coast who had died as a child. The perfect ghost. Real enough for records to pass scrutiny. Dead long enough for no one to question it. Arthur built this identity with stunning precision. He obtained a fake social security number, a fraudulent driver's license, a completely new set of credentials. And then over the years, he slowly reintegrated himself into society under this fabricated persona. He moved west, working odd jobs, keeping his head down, never drawing too much attention. By the time he landed in Las Vegas, the Sandelli identity was second nature. He'd been Joseph longer than he'd ever been Arthur. For over 30 years, no one recognized him. Not co-workers, not locals, not even during brief run-ins with law enforcement. He was invisible, a man hiding in full view. But in 2011, everything unraveled. All because of one thing: routine government verification. You see, the Social Security Administration, as part of a national audit, began cross-referencing ID numbers with death records. And something wasn't adding up with Joseph Sandelli's file, a man declared dead decades earlier, now filing taxes, collecting paychecks, and clocking in every day at a casino. Red flags exploded. Federal investigators began pulling records, DMV photos, employment data, everything. And what they discovered stunned them. Joseph Sandelli was a lie. And when they knocked on the door of his modest Las Vegas home, the man who answered wasn't confused. He wasn't shocked. He knew. It was over. But what came next, no one saw coming. When the knock came at the door, Arthur didn't run. He didn't slam it shut. He didn't even flinch. He opened the door, calmly, and stood face to face with federal agents who had spent months piecing together a puzzle no one expected to solve. "Are you Joseph Richard Sandelli?" they asked. He hesitated, just for a heartbeat. Then came a sigh, the kind that carries 3 decades of buried truth. "No," he said, "I'm Arthur Jones." Just like that, the lie unraveled. For 32 years, Arthur had built his life like a house of cards. Every document, every paycheck, every small interaction carefully stacked. But with that one admission, it all came tumbling down. The agents were stunned. This wasn't a hardened fugitive. There were no guns, no escape plans, no shredded files in the fireplace, just a tired older man, thinner, grayer, but still carrying the sharp eyes of the broker he once was. As the story broke, the headlines exploded. Missing man declared dead, found living under alias in Las Vegas casino. Chicago broker vanished in 1979, found alive. After 32 years, for the public, it was baffling. For his family, devastating. His ex-wife, Joanne, had long believed he was dead. She'd grieved. She'd buried his memory. She raised their children alone. In her mind, Arthur was a victim, taken by some cruel twist of fate. But now, in a crueler twist, she learned he'd simply walked away. No phone call, no letter, no explanation. Just a clean cut from the life he once knew. And when Joanne was interviewed after the discovery, her words cut deeper than any tabloid headline. She said, "He let us believe he was dead. He made us suffer that pain. I don't think I'll ever forgive him for that." The children, now grown, were silent at first. What could they even say? Their father wasn't murdered. He wasn't abducted. He wasn't in witness protection. He had chosen to vanish. And the reason? That's where the story takes a darker turn. Arthur would later claim that he fled due to mental pressure and financial ruin, that the stress of mounting debts and possible threats from the mob due to his gambling left him feeling cornered, that disappearing was the only way out. But was it cowardice or survival? That's a question viewers still debate. What we know is this: Arthur didn't fake his death for millions. He didn't vanish for political asylum or espionage. He lived modestly, worked quietly. He existed in the margins, which makes the question even more disturbing. Why did he abandon everyone who loved him? And even more chilling, why did he never look back? Arthur Jones, once thought to be buried in an unmarked grave, lost to the shadows of Chicago's underworld, was now standing under the fluorescent lights of a Las Vegas interrogation room, answering questions that had haunted his family for more than 3 decades. But even now, he wasn't giving much away. He admitted to fabricating his identity. He admitted to vanishing on purpose. But when it came to the why, he remained cryptic. He told investigators he left because he couldn't handle the stress, financial debt, pressure from the trading floor, and yes, rumors of gambling losses. Some reports even suggested links to organized crime, though no hard evidence ever surfaced. But even so, 32 years, he hadn't contacted his wife, his children. No postcards, no anonymous letters, nothing. Authorities quickly realized Jones hadn't committed any violent crime. He hadn't stolen money. He hadn't broken into a vault or escaped prison. His greatest crime was disappearing. He had committed identity fraud. Yes, a federal offense. He had falsified Social Security documents and employment records, and those charges did carry penalties. But when they looked at the bigger picture, they found themselves in an uncomfortable place. He hadn't taken anything except a lifetime. He had stolen time from his family. He had stolen the truth from his children. And in a way, he had stolen his own identity, living as a ghost of the man he once was. Back in Chicago, the news spread fast. The media camped outside his old neighborhood. Some neighbors said they were shocked. Others, not so much. He always seemed like the type to crack under pressure, one former coworker said. He was obsessed with the markets. Maybe he just lost his mind. But Joanne, the woman he left behind, didn't want excuses. She wanted answers. And so did his now grown children, who had lived their entire lives thinking their father had been taken from them, only to learn he had simply walked away. What do you say to that? How do you begin a conversation that's been silent for 32 years? You don't. None of them ever spoke to Arthur again. There was no reunion, no family forgiveness, no movie ending. For Joanne, it was as if he had died again, but this time, by choice. In the end, Arthur Gerald Jones wasn't dragged away in handcuffs to serve decades behind bars. He didn't make a televised confession. There were no high-stakes trials, no dramatic courtroom revelations. Instead, he faded back into the shadows, just as quietly as he had reappeared. He received probation for identity theft. He paid a fine, and then he walked free. But his freedom came with a cost no court could measure. He became a symbol, not just of a man who vanished, but of a truth no one wants to admit, that sometimes people disappear not because they're taken, but because they choose to leave. Arthur Jones left behind a family, a legacy, and a name. He became Joseph Sandelli, a man who never truly existed. He faked death not for money, not for fame, but for the one thing he believed he couldn't find in his real life: peace. But can peace ever come at the cost of someone else's torment? To this day, his family never reconnected. His children never forgave. His ex-wife never spoke to him again. And perhaps that's the true punishment, to be found and still be completely alone. Arthur Jones wasn't a killer, but his disappearance was its own kind of violence, one that left wounds far deeper than any physical crime. And as his story fades from the headlines, we're left with one lingering question: how many more Arthur Joneses are out there, living under new names, with old secrets, walking beside us, unnoticed? Disappearances don't always end in tragedy, but they always leave echoes. And sometimes, the scariest truth isn't that someone died, it's that they left and chose never to come back. If this story gripped you, if it made you question everything you thought you knew about what it means to disappear, please do 3 things. Like this video to support our channel, subscribe for more unbelievable but true stories like this, comment below. Do you think Arthur Jones deserved forgiveness, or did he get off too easy? You never know who's watching, or who might be missing someone, even now. Thanks for staying with us. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, not every ghost is dead.